has just been an overabundance of Baltimore sports topics for us to tackle here this week. And certainly the Orioles coming up on the trading deadline in first place, sort of teetering every day and every other day with pitching issues, some offensive issues that have been offensive over the last month as well. And, of course, the Ravens on the field each and every day with, sadly, a new opportunity for someone to get hurt and for us to have to send you a WNST text brought to you by Coons Ford Security Boulevard. But so far, so good. Trying to get players back on the field. And number 5 looks pretty good. Here to talk all things Ravens, Orioles, and our WNST tech service. He is Dennis Kolatzis from Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. They do present our tech service. And, of course, Dennis is here on Thursdays, driving you home from 3 until 5 each weekday afternoon. And what's going on, man? It's it's easy to do sports radio when you've got great topics to tackle, Dennis.
No question about it, Nestor. Orioles in first place. Ravens training camp and full bloom, if you would. Great time of the year. Nothing better than being a Baltimore sports fan right here, right now.
All right, so look, I know you're more of a football guy than a baseball guy. I know historically you've loved baseball. I don't think you're the guy checking out the A pitcher in Aberdeen right now, going to Delmarva, the way you are checking out some JUCO, walk-on safety at East Bemidji State who might be a 6th-round pick for the Ravens in 2019, right? So I know you're more into the football side. But the deals this week and where the Orioles are, I mean, the one concern, and I know you like to talk about how many cars you have on your lot and all of the different aspects of your business, whether it's the shop, whether it's new, whether it's pre-loved, whether it's getting heated seats for my wife in the winter, and all those cool things you do. The Orioles love to talk about, well, we're in first place, right, and we've won the most games the last 5 years. The one thing they don't talk about, it's kind of like a political, someone running for office. They don't really want to talk about too much policy, but the real policy comes out on July 31st when you find out where your depth is. And when you have to go out and compete for the best players in the world to add to your team for the stretch run in a year when you're in first place, the Orioles lost the trading deadline. Now, that doesn't mean that Steve Pearce doesn't hit 350 and Wade Miley goes 8-1 the rest of the way with a 2.5 ERA. That's possible, right? I mean, that could happen, but they did not win the trading deadline, and they didn't win the trading deadline not because they had 3 key pieces that are the next Machado and Scope and Britton that they're holding on to. They didn't win the trading deadline because they did not have the artillery. And there's nothing worse, Dennis, than going to a gunfight with a water pistol, right?
Yeah, no question about it, Nestor. But you know what? They depleted the farm system. It's obvious that Dan Duquette does not believe in the farm system. He's traded away all the prospects. His mindset's win right here, right now. It's his version of Moneyball. But you can't, you can't knock the guy. The Orioles have won the most games out of any team in baseball the last 5 years. They've been very competitive. They're right there in the hunt. Now, he's made a couple of moves with what he could, what he had to work with. But it is what it is. They have to hold serve at home, keep knocking the ball out of the park, and the pitching has to be good enough. That's been a good enough formula to get the Ravens, the Orioles in the playoffs the last
You're mixing up your purple and your orange birds here, Dennis.
You know what? I'm not used to the Orioles being competitive year in and year out.
Because I'm broadcasting on Facebook Live, this is a Raven and this is an Oriole.
Thank you.
I'm wearing them both right now. I mean, I'm all geeked up. What do you want me to say? I mean,
right.
I got into this business 25 years ago 4 times like this. Back in the 90s before I had NST, I thought every year, the mid 95, 96 when the Ravens came and the Orioles were that good, I'm like, man, we are a new kind of sports city. We're going to have this year-round thing. And it's been so wildly lopsided. And, Dennis, I want to ask you about this because I went to the practice Monday night. And, I'm not going to give away my source, but I had a source at the very, toward the top of the Ravens depth chart say to me, and I asked him, sort of in a candid, off-the-record sort of way, what'd you think of the crowd tonight? There was nobody at the stadium. I mean, there were 1,500 people at the stadium. That whatever they announced it as, there was some military there, but it was a very noticeable lack of people on a relatively okay night. I know the weather wasn't good, and you know what the executive said to me, Nestor? They're in first place. We're 5-11.
Yep.
That's the reality. And I said, whoa, because, I mean, I love me some Ravens, and we all know how the Orioles have treated me, and you know where my love is because I'm, it's like my cat. She gives love because she gets it, right? I would say this with the Ravens. They are keenly aware of my Facebook timeline and how many people are trying to sell their tickets. They are keenly aware of the secondary market and where the ticket prices are. They are keenly aware that there's some old guys like you and me that are whispering on the radio and here and there and on the internet about how nice it is to sit at home with Christos and watch the games on television where the beer's over here and the food's over there and I don't have to deal with the crowds and the drunks and the fights and the F-bombs. And so, there's a reality going on with the Ravens, and the practice on Monday night that wasn't well attended, I find it interesting that they would say to me, we were 5-11. We were 13-3 and won the Super Bowl. There'd be more people here, right? That's the life lesson, right?
Well, not only that, but they're not used to it. They've been just spoiled by success year in and year out, playoffs more often than not. Still, 10 out of 20 seasons, the organization has been in the playoffs, but they've missed the playoffs 2 out of the last 3 seasons. They're not used to this, and I guarantee you they're not going to put up with this. Steve Bisciotti does not like to lose. Everybody at the Castle's got to be feeling some heat. Ozzie Newsome, John Harbaugh. I think everything's on the table. This is going to be a make-or-break year for a lot of players, coaches, et cetera, because this organization is one of the gold standard in the NFL, top 5 franchise, I dare say, not just because of a homer, because that's what the record says they are over space and time. And I'm not surprised that they're keenly aware. I'm not surprised that the crowd was sparse. If they were coming off of a playoff season or a Super Bowl season, that's one thing. The stadium would have been full. But as you mentioned, 5-11, there's other things to focus on. And you either attract or you repel. So now the team's in a position they're repelling. They've got to get back to their winning ways. They've got to fill up the stadium. They've got to give guys like you and I reason to come and cheer for them in games that matter in November, December versus ho-hum and how high of a draft pick are we getting?
Well, and I would say this too, and this is, and I'm being as fair as I can possibly be. I mean, I live downtown. It's not a hardship for me to go to an Oriole game or a Raven practice downtown ever. I can walk, get a hot dog on the way, get a sausage. I know all the vendors. I get treated with love until I get to the front doors, at least on the baseball side. So, but for other people, for you who live in the suburbs, you live in Bel Air, you're going to drive downtown on one night this week. You're not going to do it 3 times, right? You're going to do it one night. Even though the Ravens practice was free, and even though it's a practice, you may be more inclined to say, well, let's wait till Wednesday night and go see Hamels pitch against Gosman. We got a first-place baseball team. I'll go down there and drop a C note and take my 2 kids down there and get some $18 tickets and, stop across the street and get a cocktail or run down to somewhere on Cross Street down to our friends at Mother's or whatever and get some wings before the game. I could see where you would have that option where for so many years you didn't have that option, right? But for so many years you could have gone up to Westminster and had that storybook thing that's no longer really available. But if you're a Baltimore sports fan and you're driving into the city this week, you would be inclined to go see a first-place baseball team, I would think. Now, I don't expect big crowds at Camden Yards the next couple nights either because they're not giving away a bobblehead of this or a hat of this or a shirt of that, which is when people tend to go. But there will be more people downtown because the team's good. And we are at a little bit of a crossroads where I don't want to say the Orioles have been better than the Ravens the last 5 years because we had a parade. But the Orioles have been as relevant as the Ravens if you love sports. And I know there's a distinctly different crowd between the Orioles and the Ravens, which kind of breaks my heart 25 years into this because, I was raised on the east side where Colts and Orioles were, one and the same. I don't feel like it's that way when I see the purple flamingos on everybody's lawns around here, and I don't see orange pennants all over everyone's cars coming out of Coons Ford. But that could change, and, run me through Steve Pearson, how you feel about the pickups in Miley. Certainly they didn't win the trading deadline, and we're going to have the Rangers coming here with LaCroix and with Beltran and see real impact for this Texas team as well as the Cleveland team. The Orioles certainly can win the World Series. I mean, they can certainly win the division. I would have loved to have seen more, but given what they had, I mean, I give Duquette a B plus, maybe an A minus on what he did on Monday.
Yeah, I agree with you, Nestor. The parade aside, you can make an easy argument that the Orioles have, in fact, been better than the Ravens the past 5 seasons. And I think we as the fans benefit over space and time because competition is good. We're no longer a one-team town. Pre-Ravens, we suffered, with the Orioles with mediocrity or less year after year after year. And the Orioles have had to step their game up because they had the reverse effect of empty stadiums, and still the passion hasn't come back all the way once they
Dennis,
lost
they're down
base.
180,000.
Yeah.
I mean, Marty Conway came on earlier this week. If you haven't heard that segment, go check it out. 180,000. I mean, he said it's about $4 million from what, his math would be at least $4 million, the way he put it. He's like, that's directly to payroll. That's the $4 million that Ubaldo Jimenez is getting, or Gallardo's getting, or Trumbo got this year, that you look at the end of the year, if they fade and don't play playoff games, their revenue's going to be down on the baseball side. Now, the amount of money he's putting on his side in his pocket on the side on the TV thing's a whole different deal. But for the baseball team itself, any business you're running, you want to see it grow. It's not growing this year, Dennis.
It's not, but still, competition is good, though. And imagine if the Ravens weren't in town, how bad this team would really be, how bad this organization would really be. They have to make some moves. They've invested a ton of money on the, with the offensive players. They still have a Machado deal to make down the road and whatnot. But I think competition is very good for both organizations. It's going to make both of them better and appeal to the sports fan.
And the Ravens feel it. I promise you. I mean,
Good thing.
From their lips to my ears, I promise you, the Ravens hear that the Orioles are good, and they hear that tickets are on sale on the internet, and they feel that they need to be 3-1. You know what I mean? Like they need to start the year like that. Now, that is onto the purple field, and I know you haven't been out there. I've been to a couple of practices. The first thing you notice when you walk in the stadium on Monday night is Joe Flacco looks like Joe Flacco. And it's not lip service. It's not, well, we'll see how it goes or whatever. You go out there and watch him throw the football, you would never know he was ever hurt.
Well, I think that's the greatest news of all. I saw Mike Wallace. He's raving about what a live arm Joe Flacco has, what a strong arm, how accurate he is, how he gets it, how he's a veteran. Mike Wallace could be a big addition for this team. But I'm glad to hear that the Ravens are nervous. I'm glad to hear that they're paying attention, which means they will do all that they can as an organization to get back to their winning ways, because mediocrity, not making the playoffs, is unacceptable. And that comes from the top down. That comes from Steve Bisciotti. But it's great news about Flacco, and I think they'll go. I think we can all agree they'll go as far as Joe Flacco is going to take him with that big arm of his. He's got to make players around him better. That's his next step as he evolves into a world-class quarterback like a Tom Brady, is to make the players.
It doesn't matter who my wide receivers are. I'll get them the ball 80 times,
get them
right?
The ball, man. Put the ball right there in a breadbasket and pick up that offense. And again, they also have they got work to do on the defensive side of the ball. That concerns me more than the offense. Can they stop people? Can that secondary hold up? But again, glad they're feeling some heat, particularly from the Orioles organization, and they're paying attention to sparse numbers at training camp.
All right. Well, Dennis, so what's going on out there at Coons Florida Security Boulevard? You've been too busy selling cars to even get out to training camp. Hey, I got to tell you this. I traveled with Peter DeLutis on Saturday night. And, you're always trying to put me into a ragtop Mustang, right? I mean, that's where you're always fishing
Drop
me
top.
that way.
Drop top,
Drop top. Peter has one, and we strolled to Billy Joel on Saturday night. And, Art Modell would always say, I feel like an 18-year-old, but where are you going to find one at this hour, right? I mean, so I felt a little like, a little younger than my years, even though it was the worst thunderstorm we've ever seen. We had to put the top on. We had to pull over on 95 in Beltsville. We almost got belted in Beltsville. But, yeah, man, summertime, I have had, at one point in my life, I had a Jeep, with the bra on it, and it had that open. So I had that point in my life where I had the open-air vehicle, and I've rented a few. But it was really nice on a Saturday night to stroll around with a convertible. It was.
Nothing like dropping a top on a nice warm summer night, Nestor, with a cool breeze hitting you on your head, and it's a way cool feeling. We're the number one Mustang selling dealer on the East Coast right now. We have people flying in from all over the country to take advantage of the savings that we offer them. Our online reputation has never been better. We are people of our word. We do what we say we're going to do, and we save our friends, our neighbors, our customers, our associates a ton of money. We sold over 400 vehicles last month, Nestor, 270 new and 150 used.
You got like a whole scoreboard, right? Like your number something in the every month you get your own standings, right?
Everything is math. The Orioles are math, the Ravens are math, and Coons Florida, Baltimore, WNST, we're all about mathematics. It's all about what you're producing. So either producing more work you're producing last year never stay the same. And like the Ravens, for me, winning is not winning is not an acceptable practice. So we have to keep pushing the envelope, keep pushing to be the number one dealer in the market. We were number one by over 30 vehicles, Nestor. And I told our zone rep at the beginning of the month, I said, everybody else is playing for second place. Okay, just put that out there, and he did. And we just crushed the competition. I've got a great staff here. We all go the extra mile for the customer, and we save everybody a ton of money.
And you'll talk some football with him too.
We'll talk football, baseball, hockey, the WWE, whatever they want to talk about, World Cup, soccer, Olympics. It's just a great environment. I have a great staff, great group of guys and gals that they get it. And no matter what you need, we're a one-stop shop. Any kind of repairs, we got our body shop is expanding. A third paint booth, a direct repair facility for Mercedes and Lexus. We do it all.
All right, Dennis. Well, look, I know you're going to be here on Thursday driving everybody home. Next time you and I get together, I want to have an Olympic conversation with you, okay?
Okay, we'll do that. We'll do it with Michael Phelps. And
we're just going to do a straight Rio conversation, shoot interview. I need to watch the Real Sports piece before we do it because I'm going to get into politics and money and civics and and as you said, the math, right? I mean, there's math involved in the Olympics, so we'll talk about that as well. Hey, man, great having you on as always. Great sports week here, and we'll keep a look out on the SSV on WNST, out on Twitter as well. He is Dennis Kolotzis. He sponsors our WNST Tech Service, which is also number one in the marketplace and has been for a decade now. Jump on the WNST Tech Service. You'll get the news first, as you did with Ravens news over the weekend, Orioles news over the weekend, and anything in the future. We get it to you first. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.